Hi there, this is Patrick. You're welcome to our session or to my session. Let's make our Domino web server rock solid. And welcome to your last day of RNUG. I'm very pleased to be here and have the chance to give you my presentation. Let me introduce myself real quick here. So who am I? Just call me Patrick. I'm a senior consultant for security at Team Technology. You maybe heard of Team Technology. It's the home of Teamworker, modernization platform for IBM Domino applications. I'm very paranoid about security, and my partners can let you know if you meet them how crazy I'm about it, and let them always know. I do love Domino for one part about security and the other part of how easy you can accomplish things. And since I've been working with Domino since version 4.5, it's already a long time. If you have later any questions, you can ask them after the session, or if you want to contact me directly, you can see my phone number and also my email address at the bottom on the left side. Okay, let's start. What do you have to expect today in the next 45 minutes? We want to first look a little bit at Domino web security basics. Some of the stuff you might already know because it's been around for a long time. Some of this might still be new for you. And we have a second part and take a look what on the security side is out there and what we can find all around the web regarding Domino servers and the security. And then we will take a third step and take a look at TLS, because it gets more and more important if you want to reach your Domino servers from the web. And also to make your web applications or your Domino server more secure for your end users or your customers out there. That will be the third part. So let's start. Domino is secure from the start, right? When you set up a Domino server, it's secure, right? What do you think? Something yes, something no, something maybe. And when we take a look at it, it's not so much the yes. It's more like the no. You have to do some stuff for yourself to make it more secure. And this is very, very important if you put your web server or Domino web server out there in the internet and it's reachable directly from the internet. When we take it to Domino basics, we have to say, sorry, not all settings are in one place. They are all around in different places on the Domino server. So we have system databases we have to take a look at. We have the Domino directory with a lot of settings and possibilities here. We have the ACL, the access control list of every single application you put on the Domino server. And the database properties we can take a look at. And there are also additional applications that can help you make the Domino server more secure. And we will cover them all today in the first part. Let's take the first look at the Domino directory and the data directory ACL also. So when we take a look at the default and anonymous access, it should always be set to no access for the Domino directory. The manager and designer level rights should be reserved for only a selected few users which are directly made manager or designer. You can assign user types for ACL entries to prevent rogue access that you don't want to have users on your Domino server at all that are not, for example, authenticated. There is in the directory ACL Advanced and Advanced tab that lets you look up user types for unspecified users. This is very, very helpful to make it possible to find user types that don't have or are still unspecified and not defined as user or server or what kind of access they have. So you can take a look at that to make it even more secure. You should avoid usernames directly and server names directly in the Domino directory ACL, except the administration servers for sure. When we take a look add anonymous access on system databases, we take a look at the ACL first. So since we have there always, we should always have a setting for the default user and the anonymous user. When we take a look at anonymous for the system databases like log.nsf, catalog.nsf, statrep, and so on, any of these databases should have set the anonymous access to no access. And any application database that should also set to no access if you don't want unauthenticated anonymous users to access these applications. We have another property in the database. This is don't allow URL open. And if you take it, for example, in this case, from the server log that we have in our screenshot here, you can see the database property, don't allow URL open. So this disables directly opening the database via an HTTP URL. This needs to be set on system databases if you don't want to have them access. And believe me, if you take a look at your system databases, there are still a few databases that don't have this set by default when you set up Domino server. So go ahead and check them and look out for this parameter. You can also set this web access setting for any database you don't want a user to be opened via a browser. When we go further and take a look at the server document, we have the chance to enforce the server access, and therefore in the server document under ports, internet ports, and then web, enforce server access setting, set this one to yes. The default here is set to no for ages, so this is something you have to change for sure. When you set this to yes, the HTTP server honors all the settings in your security tab. So this makes it also impossible for Domino or Nodes users that are set to the access deny list to access the Domino server via the HTTP server. If you have this still on no, this is still possible for the end user to access your server via HTTP. So make sure you have this set also. Further on enforcing HTTPS, we don't want to reach our web servers just unsecurely via HTTP if we provide authentication or access to some data from our company to the users out there or your employees out there. So in the server document, ports, internet, ports, web, we have another setting to force the login on HTTPS. Or you can set it to redirect to HTTPS. So your Domino server is not reachable via HTTP port 80. Just go to redirect it to HTTPS. Today in 2020 and regarding all the new certificates out there, and you should have TLS enabled or the SSL enabled, there's no reason to have HTTP access possible from external hosts today or externally for external users today. When we have another configuration in the server document, it's on the Internet Protocols and Domino Web Engine tab, or if you use internet sites, the website document and Domino Web Engine, you can configure the idle session from timeout for inactive sessions. So if a user was authenticated, in this case, like 120 minutes ago, and is idle for this time, he will automatically, the HTTP session gets disconnected. There's also a setting, you force the login on SSL, so you have a secure login for your end users and also during the authentication process. With an additional database, we have the internet password logout that gets configured in the configuration document of the Domino server. And there's a security tab for that. And you can set the enforce internet password logout to yes. It goes hand in hand with an additional application where the users which are logged out themselves because they wrote the wrong password in the authentication dialog are listed, and you can unlock them. If you don't set this, the users out there have unlimited attempts and can use password guessing, and an attacker could use password guessing to find out a password for certain users and combine them with the email address to access your server. So set the maximum retries, for example, to 10, the default maximum tries interval, for example, for 1 hour, then it will get unlocked after an hour again for the user, and make sure you restarted the server for the setting to take effect. When we are at password at the moment already, let's take a quick look how long it takes to break a password just by password guessing and using dictionary texts on a Domino server. And this is really, really interesting when you really look at it, how fast this can be. Depending on the length of passwords you are using, it can go really, really fast. Even with 6 letters you use only numbers or mix lower and uppercase letters, it just goes instantly up to 8 seconds. You should always have a longer password set here. I know I'm praying on this, but I still have a lot of customers I go to during the year that have very, very low settings for the passwords, and it is too easy to break them. And with the other already discussed settings previously, you can make your Domino server much more secure using longer passwords and mix them with upper and lowercase alphabets and so on. Further on internet password security, we do have another setting in the server document, Security Internet Access tab, where we can set the name variations. And you always should have this setting set to fewer name variations with higher security. This is not the case in the default again, so you have to change that. And this limits the names to which you can log in with to the Domino server to these 5 I have here: full hierarchical name, common name, any alias that is set in the person document, or the internet address, so the email address that is used, and the unique ID, but I don't think somebody knows that one. So if you make it even more secure, or your Domino server even more secure, you can limit the number of name variations even further. And for that, you need to add a view to your Domino directory and use a nodes ini variable to make this active. So you just create a view, restricts which view is used for identifying users in the nodes ini. For example, you can call it just $web in the Domino directory. You can sort it just by full name, this view, and then just include the full name in this view, and then the users can only log in using the full name. Example of the nodes ini entry would be the one down below, NA for the nodes and address book, web lookup view equals the view you are created. This is just an example. You can use any type of view name. Just make sure you have it then in the nodes, provide the nodes in the entry correct. So we have another part of security of internet passwords, and this is one I come across very, very often. It's sad to say, but it's a lot of customers have this not set and changed this over the years if they already had a Domino server and a Domino directory for very long times. So in Domino directory profile, you can choose that through via actions, edit directory profile in Domino directory. Password verification compatible is often set to version 2. So this means an older version that has a very, very old hash algorithm. You should change this to password verification compatible with Node's Domino release 801 or greater. So you get a unique hash value, and then you need to refresh all the person documents you have in your Domino directory. You can do this by selecting the person documents and then actions upgrade to more secure internet passwords if you have set it on the Domino directory profile. To go a little bit more deeper into this, you can see we had already earlier different versions of it. Version 1 was prior Domino 6. We had version 2 that was introduced in Domino 6, and you should have set it to version 3 introduced to Domino 801. You can check this if you have the setting enabled already, and first go in the Domino directory profile and see what settings you have there. But you can see this also on every person document if you open up the document properties and go ahead and just go to the $secure password field, and you should see a value of 2 here. So 2 equals version 3. 1 is version 2 and 0 is version 1 to make it a little bit more complex for you also. If you don't have the set, please go ahead and upgrade this, because otherwise it is very, very easy to break into your Domino server and find out the passwords for your users. You can take a look at the link I provide here. I think the slides will be available after the session, so where the details about the password hashing algorithm are also explained. So we know it's the second part now for taking a look at the Domino server, and we want to see what's out there. So concluding the basic part, we want to see how many Domino servers are out there in the internet which are reachable from the internet. And we have different tools for that out there, and they are pretty amazing what they can do. So we have the first is ZMap, and the other one I want to show you is Showdown, and I will go into the Showdown session live and show it to you in the browser. Let's take a first look at ZMap. ZMap is a single packet network scanner you can use. What makes it so unique is that you, with a certain internet connection and a good computer server out there, you can scan the entire worldwide IP version 4 address space within 45 minutes. So this is like a 1 gigabyte internet connection. So every IP version 4 addresses that are out there can be scanned within a very, very short time. You can even reduce this to 5 minutes if you have a 10 gigabyte internet connection. So this is a number of addresses where we have 4,294,000,000 addresses out there. Okay, we just take the one reserved out that are for private networks, but then you still have almost 3.7 billion addresses, that are scanned in this short amount of time. And I even can go ahead and scan every open port that is available using ZMap. You can take a look at this. Also, you can download the tool. You shouldn't do this on servers you don't own to just go ahead with that. You can do this on your own servers. Under ZMap.io, you will find the tool. It's mostly used on Linux, but you also can use it on Mac and Windows. There are also binaries out there, but it's very, very amazing to scan an entire network and see all open ports out there. What about IP version 6, you say? Okay, IP version 6, it's a little bit more complicated. We have a single 64 prefix that has about 18 quintillion addresses. And when we want to scan 18 quintillion addresses at a conservative scanning rate of 1 second, it would take about 5 billion years to complete. So it takes a very long time. But they are still working on other tools out there and to limit this, not speed up the scanning, but reduce the scanning to only active IP version 6 addresses. So I'm sure there will be something new out pretty soon to also scan these address spaces very, very quickly. Let's move on to Showdown. Showdown is a search engine for connect devices to the internet. So it is just collecting information about every device that is connected to the internet or directly connected to the internet. Even take a look at if you open up ports, forward ports in the firewall, you can take a look at them if you don't stealth this information. It's a database that is publicly available. You can start with a free account and perform searches on there. It provides a lot of metadata on the connected devices to the internet, about ports, the OS version, the server software that is installed on the server, a software version, for example, Domino version 11, for example. A welcome message that is sent on the port, for example, the HTTP header message, and much, much more. You can go more into detail if you have a paid account also, and that gives you more information. And this is very, very helpful also for security researchers, but also for attackers that are out there and scanning for devices that are attackable and have old versions of software out there. They also provide an API you could use and also integrate into one of your applications. So this helps if you want to have quick searches. So let's take a quick look at what's out there. I will switch to my browser and give you a quick look at what Showdown does. I'm still logged in, so I just wanted to start with an easy entry here and just search for all Lotus Domino servers that are out there. Let's see what we have here. Oh, it comes up with a reasonable amount of 330,000 Domino servers that they can identify. And it gives me already a nice overview about where they are placed. You can even hover over and see over the map and see how many hosts are there in your country at the moment that are based on this identifier as a Lotus Domino server. For sure, you can hide this information also. There's a nodes ini setting for that to hide the type of server you're using. When we take a further look at the top services, lots of them are still reachable via HTTP. That's very interesting. But they could be also forwarded to HTTPS. So they don't need to be accessible via HTTP. We have a lot of servers via HTTPS. And top organizations where these servers are hosted. So, and more detailed of the products up here, if they are used and or if a reverse proxy may be in front of them and greeting you with something else. We even have some Lotus POP3 servers right here. So still 28, also interesting. So when I take a look at just the HTTP services here, so let's go into that one and take a look how many Domino servers we have here on HTTP. This gives me also an overview if they are reachable via HTTP. And I can even go into more detail and just click on the IP address and see information about the server and what's running on there. So very interesting. We do have here an information about Domino server release 10.01. Still during that time, it's IBM Domino server. And we have see the ports. And we also get an information where the server is hosted, in which city. And I can even scroll down and see information about the SSL certificates that are used, in this case on the port 25. Because we said on HTTP, there is no SSL certificate. And we see information also about all the ports that are open, what kind of certificates, if the certificates are still valid or not. So I get quite a lot of information down here just regarding the server. Let's go back and just find us an HTTPS server on Domino to see that one. So let's see, go ahead and take this one. Database seems to be a little bit slow today, but I want to be sure to show you also an SSL certificate right here and what you can see also with this. So you can have even further information regarding TLS, for which kind of TLS version is used. And this, for example, TLS version 1 is still a pretty old one, and you shouldn't use it anymore. So that makes it attackers also pretty easy to break your Domino server and access it. We even have a very old version here on SSL version 3. This is already, you shouldn't use it all anymore. And we will go into this a little bit deeper in our next part of my session. So I can go also into these entries and take a look at them. Again, at the server, what kind of services they provide. If they have other services running on this behind this IP address also, not just a Domino server. You can see that this is even a traveler server. Lots of information, and this is often the case that you have a traveler server that is not configured right for HTTP and uses old TLS certificates, for example. So just a quickly to show you what is possible. You can dive even deeper into it. Try out Showdown. It gives you lots of information and also helps you to make your Domino server more secure if you want to. So we saw there's a lot of scary stuff out there. You can find old Domino servers dated pre-version 9. We even have version 6 and 7 Domino servers that are end of service in 2009 or 2010. They are still on the internet, so they can be accessed from the internet. We have a lot of servers that are still 853. 853 was end of service in 2018. We still find a lot of servers that have SSL version 3 active, and that is absolutely no-go on my security, from my security perspective. You have other servers, applications running on the machine, which can be used to hack into and then go on to the Domino server maybe. Everything prior version 901 FixPack 6 shouldn't be reachable directly from the web. If you have servers like this, you always should put in a reverse proxy in front of it on them to manage the security on the reverse proxy and not the Domino server directly. Why is that? Because in earlier version, the 901 FixPack 6, we are still attackable against attacks like Poodle or Sloth. I think they made the media during the last year's pretty big. So think about just if you have such old Domino servers, at least FixPack 6 should be in there, if not a newer version 10 or 11. If you want to see or take a look at more vulnerabilities that are out there, you can use the exposure database, the CVE. You can find it on this URL, and you can find all the DVEs that are out there for all the Domino servers that made the into or are still available. So the question is, do you want to have your application on one of these non-secure servers? Go ahead, update them to a more recent version, make them secure, and use any third-party solutions if you have to make them secure. That helps a lot sometimes, and you can use the tools I gave you now. There are still other tools out there, or you can even hire a company to find out the holes on your Domino server. Let's go to our third part and take a look at the HTTP security. Since we're talking about the Domino web server today, I want to point out two things. The most important thing is TLS. And the second one is our HTTP response headers. With TLS, you secure the connection, transport layer security. And with HTTP responses, you make the browsing security for your end users and customers higher. So let's go ahead and dive into this third part real quick. So what you need to know, you should, like we heard before, check if you still have SSL version 3 enabled. As the interesting part here, it's disabled by default since Domino 901 fix pack 9. Before that, it's not disabled, then you have to disable it. Check if your browser, the browser support, because it's already pulled when we see it. It's TLS version 1 and TLS version 1.1 will or are already pulled October 20th. And see, it's already now. So we missed the state. If you have still old versions of TLS enabled, you should deactivate them and use at least TLS 1.2. TLS 1.3 is not around for Domino at the moment, but you still can vote for it on their IDEA portal from HCL at the moment. When I looked at it the first time, I think it was around February this year, we had 126 votes for the TLS 1.3 support, and it says already likely to implement on the portal. This is good, but we actually need it right now. We should be able to use TLS version 1.3 right now. When I looked at yesterday, it had 152 votes, so it was a little bit more, but it should be very, very, very more higher up in the list because it is very, very important to have at the latest TLS encryption up there and the latest ciphers. What you need to do, major browsers pulled the support for TLS already. So this was introduced for March 2020. It was postponed because of the COVID crisis. But we still, or the latest browsers I listed down below here, starting with Firefox 78, it's possible to disable it by default, but you can override it. Chrome 81 blocks the session, but you can override it in the configuration if you want to, or if you have to. And Safari provides it since Safari 13.1. So you should get a warning on all of these major browsers and get a warning if you are using a not secure TLS encryption if you access the web page or Domino server. What you need to do to make your Domino server more secure regarding TLS, you disable SSL if you are still pre-901 fix pack 9. This is just a nodes ini parameter you can use. Disable SSL v3 equals 1. You can disable TLS version 1 also with this parameter. So just go ahead and disable that. You shouldn't use it anymore. You could disable the server header, so you are not advertising your Domino server as a Domino server. You can put disable this server header, and it just doesn't say it is a Domino server, and we won't find it on the web. And you should enable HTTP strict transport security to make your Domino server more secure. It protects against protocol downgrade attacks. So you can downgrade from, for example, TLS 1.2 to TLS 1.1 if you enable it. This declares browsers should only interact using HTTPS and nothing lower. And it actually notes response header. That is why we come back to this in the last part, when we take a look at the response header and how you can activate it. What you also need to know is regarding the ciphers that are used to make the encryption possible. In Domino 9, you had to specify the ciphers with the nodes ini parameter. This is just an example right here. Which ciphers should be used. There are ciphers out there, and also in the Domino selection list that are really unsecure and shouldn't be used anymore. These are especially old RSR ciphers, which you should take out and don't use anymore. So in Domino 10, you can select it again in the configuration document. In the server document and in the internet protocols in the Domino web engine section. And if you use internet sites and on the web internet sites, website documents and security. If you just want to provide TLS 1.2, but the only secure configuration right now, you should disable all of them except the four first ones in the list. We have another slide on what you need to do. You should always have a valid certificate. I think this is, for an administrator, it is the standard today. The easiest way to do that, you can use even Let's Encrypt on Domino. This makes it very easy, at least in version 9, 10, and 11. This is totally free to use Let's Encrypt. You can use the Let's Encrypt for Domino. It's a free tool from Midpoints that provides then with you and can connect to the ACME databases from Let's Encrypt and provide you with certificates. HDL is implementing the ACME protocol in Domino 12. So in Domino 12, we will have this natively. There's also on the AHA portal an entry to vote for it. I think it is already coming. I heard it yesterday in another session. It will be available in Domino 12. So it should be very, very safe that we get this feature. Starting in 2020, TLS public web service certificates are only valid for 398 days. All major browser vendors decided to say, okay, old or longer running certificates are not valid anymore. So if you have mobile devices or older mobile devices, you should take a look if you provide certificates with an validity of 398 days to have a new certificate or request a new certificate. You can check your Domino server if you have TLS then enabled and configured. For that, there are also tools out there. There's one on the website you can use, it's SSL Labs, and you can just type in your server and see what kind of grade you are getting for your Domino server. This is an example from the Domino server we're using for demo purposes out there, and you can make it available. You can see if you have a good grade or a bad grade. This one is the highest ranking you can get, an A+ right here. The grade changed in January 2020. Since if you still provide TLS 1.1, you can't achieve an A+ rating, you just can achieve an A rating. So make sure that you change that and disable TLS 1.1 and 1.0. Okay, we have 5 minutes left. So for the 45-minute session, we had take a look at real quick look at the response headers here. So response headers provide technical information how the website works best. You can cache content, allowed to cache content, type of content which is used, software running on the server, increased performance. We do have security headers out there. to reduce the risk and make the browsing even safer for the visitors of your website on the Domino server. HD response headers, I just picked out the most important ones. There are quite a lot of more out there, but you can go ahead and just take a look at these ones in more detail. We have the strict transport security. We already heard a second ago about. We have XFrame options, XContent type options on the content security policy. If you have multiple host names or IP addresses your server is reachable from the internet from, you should also set them for every IP or host name the server is reachable from. So you can do this via the internet sites configuration in Domino. This is general information, so let's take a look or a little bit more deeper look at the Domino part, how to set them in Domino. You can use the nodes ini and the internet sites in Domino 9. You can officially only can set 4 of them, but you can actually do 5 if you trick it a little bit. 3 can be configured in internet sites, 2 via the nodes ini. Starting with Domino 10, we have 20 custom headers that can be set, and they are all in the Domino directory in the internet sites document. So that helps, and you don't have to move to the nodes ini for certain entries anymore. Make sure you refresh your Domino HTTP task or restart the HTTP task after you have set them, otherwise they will be not in effect. I already said that one of the headers will be set via the nodes ini. So we take a look at the strict transport security. You force clients only connect to them via HTTPS. That makes it more secure. Set completely via the nodes ini. It is enabled by default since version 901 fixspec 3 interim fixspec 2. But it is set to short. So you have to tweak it a little bit. So you have to set the HTTP HSTS max H setting to get it to less than 180 days. And also include subdomains if you have any on the server. Otherwise, your subdomains won't be protected by strict transport security. With the XFrame option, you protect your site visitors against click checking. So an attacker can load up an iframe on your site and set your site as a source. That's quite easy, and you can eliminate that if you don't want to have your Domino server or part of your Domino server, your web page you're providing on your Domino server as an iframe on other sources. You can define in the XFrame options if you on which servers you want to allow that, if you have your own servers that are doing that, but don't have other non-known servers do that for you. And with the XFrame option, same origin, it can only be the same server that is referring via iframe to this site. We also have the XContent Type options. And this just reduces exposure to drive by downloads and the risk of users uploading content with the clever naming that could be treated at different content type, like an executable, for example. The XContent type option is called no sniff. In Domino 9, it's needed to be set, otherwise it's not active. In Domino 10, or starting with Domino 10, it's active by default. But it also can be disabled with a nodes ini parameter if you need to. But because there are certain applications out there that don't work if you have this content type option set. In Domino 11, it's also active by default, and it's same setting to disable it as the one in Domino 10 above. Let's take a look at the content security policy. It's more complex, only needed if you provide really input fields on your Domino server. It defines approved resources that the browser may load. It can be an effective countermeasure against cross-site scripting attacks that are out there. You can whitelist approved sources if you want to. The details about it you can read on this URL because it's getting more and more complex, which you want to enable and disable. This is a subject for another session of mine in the future. You can also check your security headers if they are in place and if they are working, and get a grade on this one too. There's a website out there called securityheaders.com, and you can just take your Domino server and your starting page. Not every header is for every site, so you have to try it out a little bit, check the full functionality of your website if it is still working after you set the security headers. Because HTTP response headers can also break your site or your application that you are using. So make sure you check if it still works after you enable the security headers, or if they are enabled the right way. So what we have learned today, let's take a quick look and overview what we all have here. So update the server to be more secure. So like anything else, you should see different information out there and have different servers out there. The latest server is mostly the most secure. Do the minimum on the basic Domino settings if you haven't done so. Disable port 80 or redirect it to port 443 at the HTTPS. Hide your Domino server type if it's not necessary to advertise it out in there in the internet, because it's easy to find, for example, on Showdown. And it's 2020. Use at least TLS 1.2, nothing lower than that. Protect your user customers with HTTP headers. That makes them feel better if they know it. And on the other side, it makes you not so vulnerable on the web. And if you want to have even more security, you should go ahead and just require, or go ahead and implement a reverse proxy before Domino server. This is the way you even can choose out of more security settings and make your Domino server even more secure. Also another thing for another session that's coming up next year. So if you have questions, I'm through with all my information. And yes, I think Margarita has questions if there are any.
Patrick, I don't have questions, but I have reaction that thank you for the great instructions for action.
You are always welcome. If there are any questions later on, again, my contact details, also with the Twitter account, you can also contact me there if you like.
Thank you. Thank you very much.